With the i9-13900H, 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM and a 2.2TB NVMe drive, the Geekom Mini IT13 packs some decent specs into a compact box, and it's a great mini PC for productivity, so let's take a look at how it performs. So full disclosure before we get started though, the video is sponsored by Geekom and they've sent me the Mini IT13 for free to showcase to you guys. So first up, let's take a look inside the box. And we get the Mini IT13 unit first with a nice compact design in an aluminium housing. We then get a thank you card followed by the mounting screws, the power supply, the plug, which in my case is a UK plug. We get an HDMI cable, the manual and a mounting plate. On the front, we've got a USB 3.2 with power delivery for charging, and then another USB 3.2 port. We've then got the 3.5mm headphone jack and the power button. On the left side, we've got a full-size SD card slot, and then on the rear, we've got the power input. We've got a USB 4 plus DisplayPort USB Type-C, followed by an HDMI port. We've got a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port, a USB 3.2 port and a USB 2 port, followed by another USB 4 port with DisplayPort and another HDMI port. And of course, all of the slots on top are for ventilation. Now on the left hand side, we've got a Kensington lock slot, and then on the bottom, we've got some rubber feet to hold it stable, as well as the screws to access the inside of the mini PC. And for those wanting to mount the IT13, you just remove the bottom plate and replace it with the provided mounting kit. So if we boot up the IT13, it takes roughly 8 seconds from pressing the power button to reaching the Windows login screen. Now I've already updated Windows and the drivers, and you can see we've got 1.8TB of usable storage left. It's running a 64-bit Windows 11 Pro version 23H2, so let's go ahead and check out the benchmarks. So firstly, I ran it through Cinebench R23 where it scores 1723 for single core and then 12,466 for multi-core. Then over on Cinebench 2024, we get 103 for single core and then 707 for multi-core. I then ran it through 3DMark's TimeSpy benchmark where we get a total score of 1944. And this is made up of a 1709 graphics score and then an 8828 CPU score. And then finally, I ran it through 3DMark's storage benchmark where it scored 2863, and here are the bandwidth results. Now when it comes to gaming, I've tested it with a few different games. If we start with Rocket League, you can see we're sitting around 50 to 70 frames a second at 1080p. And apologies for the bad gameplay. When I'm using my capture card to record, there is a very slight delay which makes it very difficult for gaming. Over on GTA 5, here are the graphics settings I've used, and again this is 1080p gameplay. With GTA 5 it generally sits around 45 to 55 frames per second, but the game is very playable, and frame rate never dropped below 45, and it also went up to the 60 frames per second in some less difficult areas. Over on Warzone, these were the graphics settings I was using, and again we're playing at 1080p. And when it comes to Warzone gameplay, it tended to sit around the 40 frames a second mark, although again it was higher in less difficult areas. But I also had some issues with some weird graphical glitches, which has happened to me on plenty of other machines, so I think we can blame Warzone for this and not the IT13. Now when it comes to gaming, you're going to be able to enjoy all of your games in 1080p, but you may have to reduce graphics or have lower frame rates, so the option is there. But if gaming is your main use, then I would highly recommend checking out Geekom's A7, which I recently reviewed, and it performs a little bit better for gaming. Now for video editing, I use Premiere Pro and it's performed really well here. My videos are 4K 200 megabits per second H.264 files, and as you can see at full resolution I can play back and edit the timeline, but there are some dropped frames due to the video files. But if I edit how I normally do with the preview resolution set to 1/4, you can see playback is now perfect and it makes it a perfect machine to do my editing on the go. I also used it with Blender, and I've been using it to create and edit some 3D scenes, and again, it's performed pretty well. It's a relatively detailed scene I'm working on, and everything runs smooth and responsively, and I'm able to work without any issues at all. Now, of course, when it comes to using Blender on a mini PC, I use it to create the scenes, but I'll send it over to my main workstation to complete the final render, as it is very GPU intensive. In terms of general use of the mini PC, including browsing the web and social media, it performs brilliantly. It's fast, it's snappy, and everything just works really well. If we head over to YouTube for some media playback, you can see it also handles it very well, and there are 0 drop frames from the 4K playback. For other media playback, I've tested 200 megabit per second 4K H.264 videos, and as you'd expect, it played back flawlessly. I then tried 400 megabit per second video files, and again, it plays back flawlessly, as you can see here. If we open it up, you can see we've got 2 Lexar 16GB RAM sticks, although they are DDR4 and not DDR5. And then we've also got the 2TB Lexar NVMe drive, along with another slot for more NVMe storage. And then we've also got a slot for a 2.5-inch SATA drive on the lid, so there's plenty of room to add additional storage. Overall, my experience with the IT13 has been good, and I'd say it's a great mini PC for productivity and media. I can browse the web, I can watch online video with no issues at all, and it also works really well for editing with the Intel chip. Now, for people that are going to be doing more GPU intensive tasks like gaming, then I'd say you're probably going to be better suited to the Geekom A7, which has the Ryzen 7840HS, and of course I've placed a link to that review down in the description below as well. But for productivity and media, the IT13 is great, and it's got additional storage options that the A7 just doesn't have. When it comes to pricing, the IT13 with the Intel i9-3900H and 32GB of RAM is $849 on Geekom's website, and of course I've placed the link down in the description below so you can go ahead and check it out now. But if there's anything I've missed or you've got any questions at all, then just leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But thanks for watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest tech.